Welcome to Fuller Speed Ahead. I'm Craig Fuller with the founder of Trucker Tools. Prasad, how are you, man?
Good to see you.
Welcome to Chattanooga.
Well, thank you.
Now, you're located at Metro Washington, D.C.
Outside Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia.
Got it. But you've been around trucking. You've started this business a couple years old?
More than a couple of years old.
Okay.
I've started this in the parent company. I've started in 2009. The first few years we did some consulting and other work, but the actual Trucker Tools has been launched in 2013.
Okay, so been around.
app,
You created one of the early freight tech, sort of this later stage freight tech companies, but still early in the cycle. But did you take on venture capital, or did you bootstrap this?
Bootstrap the whole thing.
Okay. So what is that like? For those that aren't familiar with bootstrapping, you funded this business yourself, right?
Yeah, it's the true definition is living in a box, and doing whatever it takes to get it done, right?
Yeah.
So with the limited resources, started the company with self-funding. Then I brought in some friends and family within the industry, those who understand the space, because it's easier to sell somebody a dream of, we're going to disrupt the whole brokerage market. We're going to be the next Uber in this space. People love that story. But we all know that that's not going to be the reality. So you want like-minded people to understand, to be part of the journey.
So explain to me and those that don't know what Trucker Tools is. Like what exactly is it for those that may not be familiar with Trucker Tools? So
Trucker Tools is a software platform. It connects brokers with carriers. We are a platform that connects these two customers. On one side we have brokers, other side carriers, and primarily for two solutions. One is real-time visibility, the other one is digital freight matching. And both these, if you look at it from a solution point, this is one way to look at it, but from a problem point, today when you talk to brokers, the biggest problem is visibility. They're getting very poor visibility compliance. The second one is most of the carriers that they use are one and done carriers. We call these one load wonders, right? They deliver a load and then they move on to another broker, or carrier adoption is very poor. These problems add to the cost of covering a load for a broker. That's primarily the metric that we look at. What is your cost of covering a load as a broker today? What can we do to reduce that?
Yeah, and you're really trying to focus on improving the workflow, because I mean the thing about brokering freight is there's a lot of manual processes that go into it, and most brokerage, by the definition of brokerage, is exception management. You're getting stuff that's not in the waterfall. You're getting stuff that is outside of the traditional routing guide, or maybe a carrier's dropped off of it, or perhaps it's just the market spot rates are so low that there's a reason to broker it. But by definition, it's an exception management. I talked to a factoring executive that told me half of the receivables that they pay, half of the bills they pay, are actually exceptions. There's detention, or there's accessorials, or something's wrong with it.
Yes.
And so he says, it's one thing to talk about automation, it's another to actually realize how unautomated and how optimal this business is.
Yeah.
But you guys have built a platform that connects the brokers to the carriers.
Yes.
Is it fair to say this is a take on the traditional load board products, that it's complementary or competitive with the traditional load boards?
One way to look at it. So there are three dimensions I look at this, right? On one side, you have the traditional load boards, right? That typically used to connect the brokers with carriers.
And you're referring to Truck Stop and DAT?
Yes, exactly. And as you know, I came from one of those, was with Get Loaded before we sold to DAT. And after we sold to DAT, I stayed for a little bit, then left to start Trucker Tools. And in my mind, load boards still operate as a brick and mortar, because they're reactive. They're waiting for people to come to them to find each other every single day. So a broker and a carrier who has done business in the past, again and again, they go back to the same load board to find each other.
Yep.
So this is, if anything, at best, load boards have helped us to get to where we are today, but a lot of inefficiencies are because of the way load boards are structured. Everybody throws everything in one pile and tries to find each other. So On the other hand, like you mentioned, the whole automation with these digital brokers, right? Silicon Valley is obsessed with the idea that you can click a button and the freight moves automatically, no human touch.
Yeah.
And that's a pipe dream in my, pipe dream is probably a little bit too strong a word, but I truly think that's not feasible by eliminating the brokers.
Well, there's a lot of freight that's already optimized that does that, right?
Yes.
It's the freight by the larger enterprise carriers that have a TMS system. They receive the EDI or API transaction, and it flows directly to the ELD device, right? Yeah. What you're talking about is stuff that's in brokerage, which is exception by exception itself, right?
Yes, yes.
And you're talking about optimization of basically the market exceptions, right?
And so the other problem that drives this exception is the small carrier. Mm-hmm. So today, I saw one of your similar chat, and you were with Carrier 411 founder Darren Brewer, and he said there are about 280 or 290,000 carriers, 280.
Which is nuts when you think about how many.
So that's like so many, right? About 80% of those are less than 10 trucks.
Yep.
So majority of this long tail is what we all are obsessed with in many ways. And because they are so small, they're not on one unified platform, all the inefficiencies that we see today are because of that. A small carrier has no affinity to be with you as a broker for long term. Today he goes to you, tomorrow he goes to another, he's jumping around. It's almost
these are one-night stands. You're not getting married.
No.
You're not even dating.
No.
Like this is literally one-night stand of freight, right?
Yes, exactly. And how do we put all these carriers on one unified platform? And once we can put them on one unified platform, we could really derive values, because this segment, as small as they are, they play two important roles. They move majority of the freight, so they play an important role. Second, you think about all the peaks and valleys of freight market. When there is a peak, you get more owner-operators in the space.
Yeah,
they act as shock absorbers.
Right? They leave.
Yeah, they come and they
leave the
go.
Big guys, and they go out and start their own company, right?
Yeah. So they are an important segment. So we started off. There is a reason why we started off it as a trucker tools. We went down to this guy, little guy, right? Today we have over 130,000 of these small carriers on our platform, and that translates to almost 800,000 truckers.
Wow.
That segment we captured on one platform, and by putting them on one unified platform, we are able to provide two important services. One is the real-time visibility of where the freight is from pickup to delivery, because the visibility is becoming, everybody compares. I order push pins on Amazon, I can see where they are.
Yeah.
Why can't I see where my load is? Right. Yeah. It almost became a synonymous that everybody wants to know where it is. The more important thing is matching available loads with available trucks. We're still using the word matching, but where we are going, it is putting the onus back on the carrier to pick the freight that he wants.
Yeah.
So when you do that, broker's cost of covering a load goes from wherever that is. Today, you ask any broker, if it's $100 to $150 a load, they're happy, right? Our goal is to bring it down, that variable
the cost of doing it.
Covering a load, right?
Yeah.
So finding a truck, they do 30 to 40 calls, they do checks, everything adds up. But if we can eliminate all these phone calls for them and put that onus back on the carrier can look at these loads, book one load, boom, done.
Got it.
Brokers can derive a lot of efficiency.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying that all of brokered loads go through this platform.
Right.
A percentage, call it 30%, 40%, 60%, and some brokers have said, I want 80%.
Yeah.
What that does is it leaves the broker staff open to handling those exceptions, providing better service to shippers. expanding their brokerages.
Yeah, I mean, like being in freight in the market, oftentimes the market's like a big bouncy house, right? Everybody's jumping up and down and there's a lot of stuff happening. Whereas what you're talking about is much more of a controlled trampoline, right? Where you jump in and you're out, and it's much more symbolic and manageable, right?
Exactly, and in the process, if we pitch the same solution to any big brokerage today, even the top 5 brokers, right? They're all, the hypothetical solution that we pitch to them is, wouldn't you like having all these, let's say 200,000 plus small carriers that everybody likes on one platform? Wouldn't you be happy?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's happy.
It strikes me, and I don't know a whole lot about like I used to do some internet dating, right? And it strikes me like a lot of what freight could be used the same analogies. So if I sort of look at the digital brokers, they're much like Tinder, right? You want to hook up, boom, you go on to Tinder. If you're, what you're talking about is more of an eHarmony, like long-term relationships, vetted. You know who the parties are. You have this. It's sort of like really subscribing to this sort of long-term relationship, right?
Yeah.
Where they have your app and they're pre-vetted on behalf of the like you're doing a lot of vetting for them from a compliance standpoint. You know the history, right?
Yeah. We know their history, what lanes they drive, and they have been qualified by this broker already.
Okay.
So when you know that,
if a broker has a nasty service failure that costs me a customer or just creates problems for me, can I ban them from seeing them?
Yeah, yes.
So like
you control who you work with.
Or if a broker gives me really crap freight, like he takes me to a shipper that's always holding me up, I don't have to take. I can eliminate them from my selection criteria, right?
Absolutely. So it's a private network, meaning we're not a public load board. Nobody sees no one, right? Unless they qualify each other into their network.
Got it.
And because of that, and then we add the third dimension. Everybody asks the same question, right? We call a carrier and say, what markets do you run? He says, all lower 48 states. But in reality, they don't, right? They like to keep their options open. If there is a freight that pays them enough, they'll go to any state, right?
Yeah.
But the best part is looking at what lanes they drive, on what days they drive. And more importantly, when a carrier becomes available, let's say opens up in Chattanooga, how long he stays open in that market.
Yeah.
We use all these criteria. So like you said, dating is a very good analogy. I remember the founder of Get Loaded used to use the same thing to tell what we did.
He used to talk about it. Well, somebody described the load board business like Ashley Madison once. So I had said once like Match.com, and they said, no, you don't get it. It's like Ashley Madison. I said, why? Is it because 90% of the carriers are dudes? And they said, no, it's because like this is I'm using a really bad analogy, but it's like you're coming back, right?
Yes.
Like you come back for more. And I think I do think a lot of freight movement is a lot like dating. And I think in fact in dating there's always this sort of theory that you don't want to be so available because no girl wants to date you if you're like overly available, and you don't want to be needy. And I think a lot of that goes into the game theory about being on in the freight market is having selection. So how do you manage? One of the issues that the load boards have had historically is that the carriers don't want to show where they're at because it goes back to the availability. You sound desperate or you look desperate if you're posting your availability. How do you manage that inside of the app?
So when they become available, what you said is absolutely right. And another app problem that these carriers have is when they make themselves visible to brokers keep calling them, and you can only take so many calls.
Yeah.
When you're taking a wrong call, some guy who has the right freight for you is calling another carrier.
Yeah, for sure.
So nobody wants to be missing out.
Well, it's just like it goes back to dating. I mean, think about that. Nobody wants to. I remember in the old days when dating was sort of not in vogue and online dating was new, is that you didn't want to look because you're like. So I was in Chattanooga and I got a divorce and I was worried about going online because I was like, well, everybody will know that I'm like, am I going to feel desperate? I think carriers feel this way too.
You're absolutely right.
But if you're in the app, you're like, hey, I'm tracked. You can track and you can trace me, and you know where I'm at, and it creates an automated, you sort of gamify and you automate the process, right?
So in many ways, you're thinking about So we're still stuck in that old, this is the reason why I said most of the load boards, the problems that we face are also because of how the load boards have operated.
Yeah.
The mindset is, I got to post, I have to call a carrier. I use the word from, Back to the Future. Where we are going, we don't need these phones.
Yeah, we don't need phones.
Phone calls, right?
Yeah.
So our approach is, we have taken it and said, you don't need to call. We put that onus back on the carrier.
So
we feed the loads to them.
Yeah.
We feed the loads to the carrier.
Now, how do you respond? I mean, so it strikes me as that's awesome because you make it easy. But how do you respond to a driver saying, "I don't want to be watched," or "I don't want to be tracked"?
So this is tracking is such a huge part. I mean, everybody needs to track the freight.
Right.
But no driver out there says, "Track me," right? Nobody likes it. I mean, this is a
But it's the same thing with nobody wants Facebook or social media to track them until they want free stuff, right?
Exactly.
And then you incent them by giving them coupons or something, and then all of a sudden you're that, yeah.
So we went and what we did was, we launched Trucker Tools not as a tracking app. We started off as a driver app.
Okay.
Today we have about 20 features in it. Cheapest fuel along the route. Parking, the second biggest issue they face. We help them with the detention, which we tied into our visibility solution.
Okay.
So when you use Trucker Tools visibility,
are the drivers able to give feedback and rate facilities?
Yes.
And say this is a really bad facility?
Oh yeah. So there is a community of drivers, adding.
Is there a chat messaging board as
Yes.
well? Okay.
From day one, this is again, what I have learned is, drivers love to chat with each other. Of course, if you put a message board, that ours is unmoderated, which means we let them talk about anything, and they can bash us too.
And it's free for all, right?
Free for all, right?
You can't. Yeah. We used to try to moderate our Facebook messages. There's no point.
No,
because you do, they get mad. You don't, they get mad. And you can't manage it.
And you have to let them. And the best part of our message board is, that's where we found a lot of things that they wanted us to do with the app.
Yeah.
Every button that you see on our app was promoted by drivers.
That's awesome.
And that's, thinking that we have the answer is a very false assumption in my mind. We don't. I mean, we're a vendor, so we know how software solutions should work.
Yep.
But brokers and carriers know how their business should
Well,
run.
they live in it, right?
Yes.
Nothing is in, there's the old saying that you want to get software out in the market in the wild before it's actually truly in production, because you don't know, and you're going to get a lot of feedback.
And we every feature, we have a quarterly meeting that we bring brokers and carriers in the same room at the same time, and we let them talk, discuss these issues.
Prasad, how do you guys make money? Does the carrier pay for it, or does the broker pay for it?
Brokers pay for the service.
And do they pay you on a load basis, or on an annual or monthly basis?
They pay for the volume that they track or match through us.
Got it.
But these are usually monthly subscription fees.
So it's a SaaS, recurring revenue business model, not transactional. You're not taking a piece of the transaction.
No, we're
okay,
not.
but you're truly, the broker's paying you, the drivers are free, the carriers get in free?
Drivers and carriers are free.
So, I mean, I got to ask, you bootstrapped this business, you took a lot of your learnings and your successes and your track record in a load board that got purchased by DAT and had a successful exit. But you haven't taken venture. Why have you done that? You evil human, I'm not evil, but ventures, I know people are throwing money at you. Why have you not done that?
So we get a lot
Why would you want to own 100% of your own business? That makes no sense.
There is a lot of VC money out there that's chasing this. So in early days, back, 5 years, 6 years back, all VCs wanted to hear was, they wanted us to tell a story where we tell them that we're going to disrupt the brokers and become the Ubers.
Yep.
So I tried to educate a few VCs at that time. I said, well, I mean, these guys don't understand what works here, right? So I didn't go down that route. Self-funded and friends and family who understand transportation were part of this within industry. And today, I know VCs want to be part of this, but the way I look at this is, we don't have to go down that path.
No, you bootstrapped it,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
you funded it through, like you said, friends and family, which means you own 100% of the business. There's no pressure to sort of do it. So,
No.
but it's an unconventional path.
It's an unconventional path, and
It's the way it used to be. It's not that way anymore.
no, and we get used to taking this, throw in big money at a problem and not understand the problem and hope it sticks.
So, Prasad, I gotta ask. We cover a lot of the venture scene. We have VCs that have funded our company, and what do you see? You see all these companies raising all this money, and what do you think about that?
I think it's, so in my viewpoint, VC's funding is good, right? Because money is sometimes a big problem that a lot of startups have, right? But the true thing is real value for any company. If we are not generating real value,
You gotta generate cash, revenue, and
yeah,
cash,
exactly,
right?
exactly. And a friend of mine once said, it all comes back to how much revenue you can generate and how much your customers are willing to pay for that service, right? Without that, it's going to be all smoking mirrors.
Yeah, market validation is really, really
exactly.
important.
I mean,
and you have the best market validation of all, which is revenue,
Exactly.
and that is great. So what's next for you guys? What's coming up now?
I still feel like we are, I'm probably going to take a page from Amazon and say this. I still feel like we are in the early stages of our startup. There's a lot to do. We just launched our Book It Now, which is a fully automated platform to cover loans.
Yeah.
Right. We went live with Schneider and Kingsgate, and all our broker customers who are either using our digital freight matching as of today, or the visibility solution, they're all ready to go live with Book It Now. So here is how the market is looking at it. 2 years back, you talk to a broker and say, here is an automated solution, they'll probably say, well, my freight won't go that way.
Yeah.
Today, they're talking about, I want this, maybe 30% will go, 20% will go, right? So we are having these conversations with them. Our goal is to help everyone to get on this platform. And
If they don't do it, because the issue has always been, brokers make their money through control of information or control of matching, right? Like having the customer relationship and the care relationship. They own a lot of, so in many ways they're power brokers and they're information brokers at the same time, which gives them a lot of, but what's happened is all that innovation that's gone around them, the Uberization, if you will, has really sort of threatened that ability to manage it. And so now it's about how do you apply technology to be more efficient. And imagine as they see Convoy and Uber and you name it is raising all this venture capital, that's got to put them on notice.
Yeah.
And so having solutions like yourself allow them to respond to that.
Absolutely. So we are empowering them. And you said it very well, the very thought that brokers used to think, I'm not saying all, right? Some used to still think that I need to protect everything, I can't say anything, right? So there is a reason why our platform is all confidential, fully. So when two brokers are on our platform, they don't know about each other.
They don't see each other. It's a blind market.
We pretty much put all these firewalls around them, right? So by making it confidential, we're giving that comfort zone. And we're also telling them, no, you got to walk and run and take this path. You can't just sit and say, I don't like digital brokers, and overnight these guys are going to change and my business is going to go from 0% automation to 100% automation. It's not going to happen. It's going to be steps in the process. And we have to be the champions of the change. And so in my viewpoint, the race has just begun. You see some of our competition trying to do the same Book It Now like we are doing.
Yeah, I saw that. I was interesting because there is a dialogue now, and I applaud. Competitors are doing things. Everybody's co-opetition, right?
Yes.
Everybody's competing in some level, and I think that's fine. The market's so big that no one's going to own 100% of the market for many years. At some point, we may see a much more consolidated market, but I think all of this innovation actually is forcing change, and I think companies that are able to do it and respond are going to be winners, and those that aren't are going to be left behind. And we may see a changing of the guard. We may see a situation where the largest and biggest in their sector end up getting completely displaced because they had the innovator's dilemma.
You're absolutely right. And the technology is moving at a rapid pace today. And that is giving a lot of these customers amazing power. I mean, somebody, let's say it's 2,000 or 3,000 load broker a month, right? They use technology. What's stopping them from becoming a 20,000? All they have to do is build those shipper relationships, move that freight faster and faster.
And they're frankly better positioned than the larger enterprise carriers are in many ways, because the thing about freight brokers, and I have this conversation quite a bit, is that the asset-based carriers spend a lot of their energy recruiting and retention and running equipment.
Yes.
So all the money goes into recruiting, all the money goes into retention, and that's great, they should do that. The brokers don't have that issue.
Nope.
They don't have to worry about hiring drivers. That's up to the other guys. They have to, or they have the opportunity to invest in sales for customer relationships and technology, and that's really where a lot of the money goes. So they have the advantages in a digital world over than a lot of the traditional truckload carriers.
You're absolutely right. I think you said it very well. There is no cost that's dragging these brokers down like an asset-based, because their focus is going to be different. Yeah,
it's a hard world running trucks and hiring drivers and keeping them happy. And as you get bigger, there's nothing. Your problems become exponential. It's like having a massive family. It's a much different thing than having 1 or 2 kids, right? Having 10 is a lot of work. It's exponentially harder than having 2. So.
And there is also a shift in the shipper mindset too. Most of the shippers, as much as they are looking for efficiencies, they're also putting the onus on the brokers. They're not replacing a broker. So there is a bigger change from a shipper attitude. I was talking to someone earlier, and he said, shippers are looking at brokering more freight with the idea that I'm going to put more freight with you, but I want you to show me efficiencies and help me with my supply chain, which is an easier thing, right? They're offloading their own problem to someone else.
And they want you to respond on price. Be fair to me on price, but help me solve problems. So it's a consultative sell, and as it becomes more automated, as the process becomes more automated, then it's going to be more consultative in nature. And I think some companies are better positioned than others.
It's so brokers have a responsibility of including shippers and carriers as part of a solution, but not leave them as part of problem. Right now, what happens is in these conversations, you said about visibility earlier with the drivers, right? We all look at it and say, drivers are problem for visibility, let me go around them. You can't go around them. Similarly, with shippers, if their retention is high or they're trying to cut you out on the price and other things, don't make them a part of the problem. Make them part of your solution, which is a common solution for these two parties. So that is an approach I think brokers are pushed to take it. We have seen these leaders. I mean, these leaders always stand up.
But there is something different this time around, which is the drivers that know how to use the tools have far more power than they've ever had. They have the ability to get visibility of high quality shippers and high quality brokers, or high quality facilities. All of that information is available to them. They take advantage of it. Plus, they have tools to help them inform what's happening in the market. They're not behind.
No.
It is becoming easier if you know how to manage your business to do so. It is also becoming more difficult because the market is changing so quickly, and so it comes with it. But
what you said earlier, you pointed out, in fact, a broker might think that I have to hold the information. That's not the case.
The market's not going to allow you.
You said, carriers know everything. So when you give a load to a carrier, the first thing they do is they actually Google the location and see what facilities. Are there parking spots there or not? What's the feedback?
Right.
So
they should.
They're looking at it. So they're checking everything.
As they should, and they should
which
be
is a
held
good
accountable.
thing.
They should. The shippers, much like everybody's going to have the ability to sort of hold drivers accountable. We've had, with Carrier 411, other types of feedback products, you have the ability to sort of hold people accountable. With the load boards, you have the ability to sort of hold brokers accountable, and likewise. Now, for the first time in history, we have the ability to get data to look at holding the shippers accountable, which should be held accountable.
Yes.
And I think that's a good thing.
because of that, it's easier for brokers to say, instead of telling, no, you don't look at these things, go and say, you know what, I can give you this information. You don't even have to Google, right? Which actually we provide through our app today.
Yep.
So when a carrier gets a load, we show them the feedback on the location, what facilities they have, and this is an important thing. Make it part of a conversation.
Yeah, so, shipper of choice is going to be an important factor. We're going to dive into that at FreightWaves Live in Atlanta, the Shipper of Choice Awards. In February, we will send out nomination opportunities for companies to nominate who they think the shippers of choice would be, and hopefully this awards product that we've got will help recognize high-quality shippers that are doing the right things. Prasad, thank you for coming in to Chattanooga.
Thanks, Craig.
Appreciate it, man. And loved having you. Loved hearing the story. Congratulations on your success. It is unusual in this market to have a business that's growing as fast as Prasad's that's bootstrapped. So congratulations on that. You're doing some really interesting work. And ultimately, it comes down to improving the driver's quality of life, so we applaud that. Well, thanks, Prasad. We'll tune in every single show of Fuller Speed Ahead. We put it on the app, so you can actually get access to this show and others through FreightWaves TV on the app that's on the Apple Store, on Amazon, Roku, any streaming device that has one of those networks, you can get it right there. So download the app to get this and other shows.